Midnight Season 1 is in full swing, and if you're sitting there staring at your character select screen wondering whether your main is carrying you or holding you back, this is going to be the video for you. Today I am ranking every single DPS spec, every tank and every healer in the game right now. No copium, well technically my spec is good if you play it perfectly, just honest takes on every role and where it currently sits in Midnight Season 1. Quick note before we dive in, I'm splitting this into 3 sections, DPS first, then tanks, then healers. If you only care about one role, the timestamps are in the description, but honestly, stay for all of it. You might be surprised what's going on in the other brackets. So let's dive into it. Alright, DPS is the most crowded bracket in the game, and the one where Season 1 has thrown up some genuinely surprising results. Before I get into placements, I need to flag something. Raid and Mythic Plus are painting very different pictures for certain specs this season. I'm going to be upfront about that for every spec where it matters, because giving you one blanket tier without the context would be doing you a great disservice. So let's get into it. Right, with our S tiers. S tier for me means the specs are genuinely dominant or near dominant across both Raids and Mythic Plus. And here are the 4 that have earned it so far. We've got the Devourer Demon Hunter. The Devourer Demon Hunter is S tier in both Raid and Mythic Plus, and it's not close. The mobility, the consistent target damage swap, and the AoE tool, it was built for the Midnight Dungeon pool, and it shows. If you want one spec that excels everywhere right now, this is the safest pick in the game, and it deserves that S tier title. Then we have the Unholy Death Knight. Unholy is S tier in Mythic Plus and A in Raid. It doesn't have those theatrical burst windows that raid leaders get excited about, but it does put up consistent numbers pool after pool, fight after fight, and in a meta where repeatable output beats spiky burst, Unholy is exactly what you want. S tier. Frostmage. Now here's one that's generally surprising people, and it's Frostmage, not Arcane. Frostmage is currently sat in S tier in Raid and A in Mythic Plus, which makes it stronger and an all-rounder of the 2 mage specs this season. With consistent damage profiles, great utility, it doesn't punish you in the way that Arcane does when your burst windows don't line up, and that's why we're giving it S tier. Then we've got Augmentation Evoker. Augmentation is S tier in Mythic Plus and A plus in Raid. The group buff ceiling is still the best in the game in a coordinated group. An Aug makes everyone around them better in a way that no other spec can currently replicate. In a Pug, it's slightly harder to extract the full value, but the floor is still A+, and we're going to give it an S tier overall. Then let's dive into the A tier. A tier is packed this season. These specs are all excellent picks. You will never be the problem in the group by playing any of these. Kicking off, we have the Demonology Warlock. Demonology is S tier in the Raid and A+ in Mythic Plus. It's right on the edge of S tier bracket, and I could easily see it there as well. The Raid numbers are genuinely disgusting. Implosion stacking, Reign of Chaos cleave, and it's one of the tankier DPS specs in the game right now. The reason it sits in an A overall rather than an S is that it drops slightly in Mythic Plus compared to Raid dominance. But make no mistake, if you're a Raider, Demonology is arguably the best DPS spec in the game right now, A tier overall, and potential for S if you're doing a full, pure raiding stance. Then we'll dive into Fury Warrior. Fury is A+ in both Raid and Mythic Plus, consistent, clean, no major weaknesses. It's one of those specs that don't produce headlines, but it also never lets you down. A+. Then we have the Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc mirrors Fury in a lot of ways. A+ in both environments, excellent mobility, great beginner ceiling. It doesn't quite hit the heights of Devourer, but it is an A tier pick across the board here. Then Retribution Paladin. Ret Paladin is A+ in both Raid and Mythic Plus. Strong throughput, good utility, and one of the more complete specs in the game right now. In terms of package, it does bring it all together, so we're going to give it A tier. Then we've got the Feral Druid. Feral is an A tier for Raid and A+ in Mythic+, which is genuinely a really solid showing for the spec that's historically been hard to justify. The complexity in this role is still in the spec, but the reward is finally matching in this season. A tier. Then Shadow Priest. Shadow was sitting in B when the season launched, but the March 31st patch changed that. Shadow Word Death got a 80% damage buff, and the AoE profile was boosted across the board. Apparitions, Psychic Link, Mindseer, all up around 25%. It's now A+ in Raid and A in Mythic+. The multi-target gains matter most in keys, and the raid output is genuinely now impressive, and it's going to be one to watch. A tier. Then Marksmanship Hunter. Marksmanship is A tier in Raid and A in Mythic+. Strong burst, excellent single target, and it's one of the cleaner hunter specs to play right now. The movement restriction can hurt in certain Mythic+ pools, but the damage profile makes up for it. A tier. Survival Hunter. Survival is A+ in Raid and A in Mythic+. This spec has quietly been doing solid work all season without getting much attention. It's a reliable pick in both environments, and it's A tier. Then Enchantment Shaman. Enchantment is A in both Raids and Mythic+, which is genuinely consistently showing good melee damage, strong utility through totems, and it moves well, so it's a solid A tier here. Before I get into B and C, I want to stop and talk about the 4 specs that have seen the most dramatic splits between Raid and Mythic+ in the entire game right now, because if you're planning your season around one type of content, you really do need to hear this. Destruction Warlock Raid S tier, Mythic+ B tier. Destruction Warlock is S tier in Raid, S tier because it's pumping single target and cleave damage at a level that makes it one of the best raid specs in the game right now. Take it into Mythic+, well, it's B tier. The kit that makes Destruction great in Raid, sustains single target strong execute with big cooldown windows, doesn't translate well into short, chaotic pools, environments of dungeons. If you're a progression raider, Destruction is a brilliant pick. If you're a Mythic+ main, I would play Demonology instead. Devastation Invoker is Raid S tier and Mythic+ A tier. Devastation is S tier in Raid and A tier in Mythic+. The gap is smaller than Destruction, but it's still real. The sustained raid damage is exceptional, and the spec just shines in longer boss fights with those sorts of environments. Still a solid Mythic+ pick, but you're leaving some power on the table compared to its raid performance, and it's a raid specialist with Mythic+ viability. Then Arcane Mage, which is Raid B tier and Mythic+ A tier. Arcane Mage is the exact mirror of Destruction, B tier in Raid and A+ in Mythic+. The mana burst profile and the big damage windows that feel clunky in a sustained raid environment are perfectly suited to Mythic+, where you can set up your windows around pool timing and blow everything up. If you're primarily a Mythic+ player, Arcane is one of the best specs you can play, and if you're a raider, you better be playing Frost. And then there's Elemental Shaman. This is the single biggest split in the entire game right now. C tier in Raid, S in Mythic+, C to S. I genuinely cannot think of another spec in recent WoW history that's had that kind of gap and contrast between the two content types. The reason makes sense when you look at the kit. Elemental Strength is burst AoE on demand with great movement and bloodlust. That's exactly what you want in Mythic+. Raid is a different story. The sustained single target profile isn't competitive with top specs, and the toolkit doesn't shine the same way on a long boss fight. If you're a Mythic+ main and you love Shaman, Elemental might be the best spec you can play right now. If you're a raider, however, it's not going to be your spec this season. Then let's dive into B tier. B tier is where things are playable, but you're working harder than the person next to you for the same output. These specs all have something going for them, they're just not quite there yet right now. Balance Druid. Balance is A in Raid, and it's a dark horse in Mythic+. The Raid is showing solid, but it doesn't fully quite reach those top specs. In Mythic Plus, it's a work in progress. Something about the current dungeon pool doesn't fully suit it, but it's a B overall and definitely worth watching. Windwalker Monk. A in Raid and B in Mythic Plus. The Raid output is genuinely decent, but it falls off in keys. With strong mobility, interesting kits, it's just a matter of a tuning pass to close the gap here. We're going to give it a B tier. Arms Warrior. B in Raid, Dark Horse in Mythic Plus. Arms got a single target buff on the March 31st patch, which helps, but it's still not competing with the top melee specs in either environment right now. B tier. Subtlety Rogue. B in Raid and landing in the Dark Horse category in Mythic Plus, which is essentially a wait and see. Subtlety has flashes of brilliance, but the consistency isn't quite developed yet. B tier. Frost Death Knight. B in Raid, A in Mythic Plus. Frost is actually punching above its weight in keys right now, and if you love the spec, it's more viable in Raid numbers suggest. Overall, B tier, but a legitimate Mythic Plus pick. Then moving into the C tier of DPS. C tier means you can clear the content, but you're going to feel a gap in competitive environments. Outlaw Rogue. B in both Raid and Mythic Plus, consistently middle. It's not doing anything wrong here, it's just not doing anything special either, so we're going to give it a C. Fire Mage. B in both Raid and Mythic Plus. The combustion windows are exciting, but the volatility between crits is still the main problem. When it hits, it does look incredible. When it doesn't, you're just watching other people do your job. C tier. Affliction Warlock. B in Raid and unsure yet in Mythic Plus, which is telling in itself. The dot model thrives on long fights, but Midnight's dungeon design doesn't give it time it needs to pay off, so it's sat in C tier. Assassination Rogue. C in Raid, B in Mythic Plus. Better in keys than in Raid, but neither number is strong enough to make the case, especially for this season right now. C tier. Beast Mastery Hunter. C in Raid, Dark Horse in Mythic Plus. Great for learning the game, great for solo content. Competitive aggression, unfortunately it's not quite there yet, so it's C. To summarize the DPS bracket, Devour Demon Hunter, Unholy Death Knight, Frost Mage, and Augmentation Revoker are your safest all-around mains for this season. A tier is stacked with great options, and the 4 content specialists, Destruction for Raid, Arcane and Elemental for Mythic Plus, Devastation as a Raid learner, are all worth considering if you know exactly what content you're going to be focusing on. Alright tanks, let's do this. Tanks and I have to start this section with a warning for Guardian Druid mains, because something significant has happened to it since the season launched. Same with DPS, Raid and Mythic Plus are telling different stories for some tank specs, and I'm going to call them out as we go here. Right, week 2 update, Guardian Druid has dropped to C tier in Raid. I had it as an S when the season started, and I was far from alone, but Blizzard since stripped out its primary damage toolkit. The thing that made Guardian genuinely S tier wasn't just survival, it was how it could tank and deal competitive damage simultaneously, and that's gone now. What's left is a spec that has solid defense and a stampeding raw utility, but sitting in C for Raid and B in Mythic Plus. If your main is Guardian Druid, I'm sorry. Watch for the patches, this spec has been S tier before, and it can be again, but right now, it's not the pick. Diving into S tier, we've got Brewmaster Monk. Brewmaster Monk is the top tank in the game right now, S tier in Mythic Plus and A in Raid. The Stagger model is still one of the most unique defensive kits in World of Warcraft to date. Instead of blocking your damage, you spread it out over time and purify it through active play. When you're on top of it, you're nearly unkillable. It also deals strong damage and brings good group utility. The Raid placement is A rather than S, but it's the top of A. Brewmaster is a great pick in both environments. If you're picking a tank for main for Season 1, this is your answer. A tier tanks, Protection Warrior. Protection Warrior is A in Raid and A+ in Mythic Plus, which makes it the most consistent all-rounder in the tank bracket outside of Brewmaster. Great damage output, reliable cooldowns, and one of the more intuitive tanks to play if you want a tank that performs well everywhere without needing to master a complex mechanic. Protection Warrior is your spec. A tier. Then Vengeance Demon Hunter. Vengeance is a content specialist, C in Raid and A+ in Mythic Plus. In a raid environment, it lacks the damage and utility to compete with the top specs. In Mythic Plus, it is exceptional. Massive self-sustain, incredible mobility, strong AoE threat. If you're purely a Mythic Plus player, Vengeance is arguably the second best tank in the game for keys right now. Just don't bring it to progression raid expecting to keep up. It's A tier overall with a huge caveat. B tier tanks. Blood Death Knight. Blood Death Knight is B in raid and A in Mythic Plus, which is a decent showing. Deathstrike is still one of the best self-heals in the game, and the spec has real strengths in Mythic Plus, where the self-sustain matters. It doesn't bring enough damage or utility in raid to compete with the top options, B tier overall, and it's a legitimate Mythic Plus pick. Protection Paladin. Protection is in B for raid and A for Mythic Plus. Same profile as Blood Death Knight, the utility is great, Blessing of Protection, Devotion Aura, and it's a solid Mythic Plus tank, but the raid tuning isn't matching the top specs. B overall, keep an eye on the notes. Then C tier tanks, and Guardian Druid as covered is C in raid and B in Mythic Plus. Not unplayable, but not what it was. If you're on Guardian and you're happy in normal or heroic content, you will be fine. For anything competitive, consider your options. So, tank summary. Brewmaster Monk is the clear number 1 pick this season, Protection Warrior is the best all-rounder, Vengeance Demon Hunter is elite in Mythic Plus, but don't bring it into any raid, Blood and Protection Paladin are both solid B tier, with good Mythic Plus viability, and Guardian Druid has taken quite the hit, C in raid, after the damage nerfs, and all it needs is a patch. The honest truth about tanks, even in B tier, specs are viable for most content. Don't reroll just because of a tier list, but if you're pushing Mythic progression or high keys, the gap is going to feel real. Now, healers, and this one has some genuinely surprising results. Healer bracket, and I want to flag up front, same as DPS and tanks, raid and Mythic Plus are telling different stories here for certain specs. Discipline Priest in particular has the single most dramatic split in this entire video, so let's go through it. Before I give you an overall placement for each healer, I want to flag the biggest splits right away so you know what we're working with. Discipline Priest is S tier in raid and C tier in Mythic Plus. That's the largest gap of any spec in this entire game this season. Preservation Evoker is S tier in raid and B tier in Mythic Plus, another significant split. And Restoration Saruman is B tier in raid and A plus in Mythic Plus. The March 31st buffs have genuinely changed the spec's Mythic Plus viability. Restoration Druid, the reverse of Discipline, S tier in Mythic Plus and A in raid. Keep those in mind as we go for each one. Right, Mistweaver Monk. If you want the healer that performs strongest across both types of content, Mistweaver Monk is the right answer right now. It's S tier in raid, A plus in Mythic Plus, is one of the most well-rounded healers in Midnight Season 1. The March 24th buffs pushed it to the top of the raid bracket, and the Fistweaver build in Mythic Plus is genuinely exciting. You're weaving in melee damage to generate healing, which makes it one of the most engaging healing playstyles in the entire game right now. If you haven't tried Mistweaver, Season 1 is the time because it's the top of the bracket. S tier healers and raid content people. Let's talk about Preservation Evoker. Preservation is S tier in raid and B tier in Mythic Plus. In a structured raid environment with predictable damage patterns, Preservation is exceptional. The throughput is one of the best in the game, and it brings the unique utility with Rewind. In Mythic Plus though, the range limitations on certain abilities and reactive profile of the spec doesn't suit the pace of Midnight's dungeons that well. A brilliant raid pick, a middling Mythic Plus pick, so you better know your content. Then Discipline Priest. S tier in raid and C in Mythic Plus, the biggest content split of any healer in the game right now, and honestly one of the biggest splits of any spec across any role. The Atonement model doing damage to generate healing is perfectly suited to a raid environment where you have predictable damage windows and time to set up your sequence. In Mythic Plus, the pace is too chaotic, pulls are too short, and the setup time the spec needs simply isn't there. When Discipline works, it looks incredible. In Mythic Plus keys, it's fighting for the format. If you're a raider and you're willing to invest in the execution, Discipline is one of the most rewarding specs in the game. If you're a Mythic Plus player, it's going to frustrate you. S tier for raid and C for Mythic Plus. Then Restoration Druid. Restoration Druid is S tier in Mythic Plus and A tier in raid. The reverse of Discipline Priest, The hot model is built uniquely for dungeon content, proactive rejuvenation coverage before damage hits, travel for mobility, near zero dead time between pulls, and combat rebirth as a healer is still one of the most single valuable emergency tools in high keys for Mythic Plus. In raid, it's a solid but not dominant role. A tier is the honest placement. If Mythic Plus is your primary content, Restoration Druid is the best Druid you can play. A tier overall. Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin is A in both raid and Mythic Plus. It's consistent, it's reliable, no dramatic swings between content types, great cooldowns, solid throughput, and a lot of flexibility in how you build it. If you want a healer with no sassy surprises, Holy Paladin is your spec. Then let's talk about our B tier healers. We've got Restoration Shaman. Restoration Shaman was really in a bad place at the start of the season. The March 31st patch changed that, particularly for Mythic Plus. Electrocute up by 35%, Lightning Lasso up by 450%, and a Farseer healing boost. It's now sitting at A+ in Mythic Plus with a rising indicator and B in the raid. The 450% increase on Lightning Lasso sounds wild, but that ability doesn't see a ton of use in high keys anyway. The real gains are from Electrocute and Farseer. They are real. Resto Shaman in Mythic Plus is now a legitimate pick. Raid is still showing B tier and needs a little bit more tuning, but Mythic Plus players can breathe again, B overall with a strong Mythic Plus showing. Then let's talk about Holy Priest. Holy Priest is B in both Raid and Mythic Plus, and it's one of the most consistent spec in this bracket, just unfortunately consistently mid. In a world where the Mistweaver does more, Discipline does more, in Raid, and Resto dominates Mythic Plus, it's hard to make a case for Holy unless you specifically love this spec. It's B tier. So, healer summary for all-rounded viability, Mistweaver Monk is the best healer in Midnight Season 1. For Raid Specialists, add Preservation Evoker and Discipline Priest, both are S tier in Raid, but struggle for that Mythic Plus placement. For Mythic Plus Specialists, Restoration is S tier in keys, Restoration Shaman is now a genuine pick for Mythic Plus due to recent buffs. Holy Paladin is your safe, consistent A tier choice in both environments, and Holy Priest is fine. Discipline in Mythic Plus is going to be a project. Alright, that's every spec in Midnight Season 1 ranked. Let's go for the big takeaways. For DPS, Devourer, Demon Hunter, Unholy, Frostmage, and Evoker are your safest all-rounds. Demonology and Destruction are elite for Raiders. Elemental Shaman and Arcane are top tier for your Mythic Plus specializations. For tanks, Brewmaster Monk is number 1, Protection Warrior is the best all-rounder, Guardian Druid has been nerfed hard, C in Raid after those damage changes, big oof. For healers, Mistweaver is the strongest all-rounder, Discipline and Preservation are elite in Raid but struggle for placement in Mythic Plus. Restoration Druid is the king in Mythic Plus. Restoration Shaman has bounced back after the March 31st buffs. Now, and I want to be clear about this, tier lists are a snapshot. Panning patches. Now, I want to be clear about this. Tier lists are a snapshot. Tuning patches in Midnight have been coming fairly frequently, and what's S tier today might be A tier in 3 weeks. I'll be keeping this updated as the season progresses, so drop this video a like if you want the algorithm to keep showing it to people who actually need it. If you disagree with any of my placements, and I know some of you absolutely will, and I'm looking forward to it, drop it in the comments. Tell me what you're meaning, why it should be higher, and I will read and answer every single one. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We cover the whole WoW meta over here, Mythic Plus guides, raid breakdowns, and the lore side of it, the whole lot. And I'll be seeing you in the next video.